What if I told you that the anxiety you're feeling right now, that knot in your stomach about tomorrow's presentation, that racing heart when you check your bank account, that paralysis when you think about your future, what if all of that could lose its grip on you in an instant? Not through medication, not through years of therapy, not through positive affirmations or breathing exercises, but through a single realization that the Buddha discovered over 2,500 years ago. A realization so profound, so devastatingly simple, that once you truly see it, anxiety doesn't just decrease. It fundamentally loses the power it has over you. Stay with me, because what I'm about to share isn't just philosophy. It's a key that unlocks a door you didn't even know you were standing behind. Let me start with something that might sound strange. Your anxiety isn't actually about the future. I know you're thinking about tomorrow's job interview, next month's bills, whether your relationship will last, whether you'll achieve your dreams. And I'm telling you that anxiety isn't about the future. Here's what I mean. Right now, in this exact moment, are you giving that presentation? Are you being rejected? Are you failing? No. Right now, you're reading these words or listening to this video. Right now, in this precise moment, those feared events aren't happening. They exist only in one place, your mind. And here's the insight that changes everything. You're not anxious about the future, you're anxious about your thoughts about the future. That's the first crack in anxiety's armor. The Buddha called this dukkha, often translated as suffering, but more accurately understood as unsatisfactoriness, the inherent dissatisfaction that comes from our relationship with reality. And one of the primary ways we create dukkha is through what Buddhists call papanka, mental proliferation, the mind's tendency to spin elaborate stories, scenarios, and narratives. Think about the last time you were really anxious. Maybe you sent a text and didn't get a response. Your mind immediately started writing a script. They're angry with me. I said something wrong. They don't want to be friends anymore. Everyone's going to leave me. I'll be alone forever. See what happened there? You went from one unanswered text to a lifetime of isolation in about 15 seconds. That's papanka. That's the mind doing what it evolved to do, predict threats and prepare for them. The problem is, it's creating the very suffering it's trying to protect you from. Now here's where it gets interesting. The Buddha's core insight wasn't just that we suffer because we think too much about the future. That's obvious. His insight was much more radical. He realized that the self we're so anxiously trying to protect doesn't exist in the way we think it does. This is the doctrine of anatta, or non-self, and it's the nuclear bomb that obliterates anxiety at its root. Let me explain what this actually means, because it's wildly misunderstood. When Buddhism says there's no self, it doesn't mean you don't exist. You're clearly here, reading this, having experiences. What it means is that there's no fixed, permanent, unchanging essence that is you. There's no little person inside your head pulling levers, no soul separate from your experiences, no core identity that needs to be defended and protected at all costs. What you call you is actually a process, not a thing. It's a verb, not a noun. Think about a river. We say the Mississippi River, as if it's a permanent object, but the Mississippi River today is completely different water than it was yesterday. The molecules have changed, the flow has changed, the shape has shifted. So what is the Mississippi River really? It's a process of flowing water following a particular path. It's a pattern, not a thing. You are exactly the same. The you that's here right now is different from the you that was here 5 minutes ago. Your cells have changed. Your thoughts have changed. Your emotions have changed. You are a flowing river of experiences, sensations, thoughts, emotions, and perceptions. But here's the thing. Anxiety exists to protect a self, to protect your identity, your ego, your sense of who you are. When you're anxious about that job interview, you're really anxious about whether you'll be seen as competent or incompetent, successful or a failure, worthy or worthless. You're trying to protect a particular story about who you are, but if that self is just a story, just a process, just a river that's constantly changing anyway, what exactly are you protecting? This is where the insight becomes experiential, not just intellectual. The next time you feel anxiety rising, try this. Don't try to fight it. Don't try to breathe it away. Don't try to positive think it into submission. Instead, get curious. Ask yourself, who is anxious? Not in a dismissive way, but genuinely. Who is the one experiencing this anxiety? You might say, I am anxious. Okay, but who is this I? Where is it located? Is it in your chest where you feel the tightness? Is it in your head where the thoughts are racing? Is it in your stomach where you feel the butterflies? Look closely. Actually investigate. What you'll find, if you look honestly, is that you can't locate this anxious self anywhere. There are sensations in the chest, tightness, pressure. There are thoughts in the mind, rapid, worried, catastrophizing. There are emotions, fear, dread, apprehension. But there's no anxious self having these experiences. There are just the experiences themselves, arising and passing away, moment by moment. This is the Buddha's teaching on the 5 aggregates, the 5 components that we mistakenly bundle together and call a self. There's form, your physical body and sensations. There's feeling, the pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral quality of experiences. There's perception, the recognition and labeling of experiences. There's mental formations, thoughts, emotions, volitions. And there's consciousness, the awareness of all of this. When anxiety strikes, all 5 aggregates are involved. There are physical sensations, unpleasant feelings, perceptions of threat, anxious thoughts, and consciousness of all of it. But none of these, individually or together, are you. They're just processes happening. When you see this directly, not as a concept but as a lived reality, anxiety loses something essential. It loses the self it was trying to protect. But let's go deeper, because there's another layer to this insight that makes it even more powerful. The Buddha taught something called the 3 marks of existence, 3 characteristics that apply to all conditioned phenomena, everything that arises in your experience. We've touched on the first one, anatta, non-self. The second is anicca, impermanence. Everything that arises passes away. Everything. No exception. Every thought, every emotion, every sensation, every experience, it arises, exists for a moment, and passes away. Right now, bring to mind the most intense anxiety you've ever felt. Maybe it was years ago. Maybe it was last week. Where is it now? It's gone. It arose, it existed for a while, and it passed away. Every anxiety you've ever felt has been temporary. Every single one. They've all come and gone like waves on an ocean. And the anxiety you're feeling right now, or will feel tomorrow or next week, it too will pass. It has to. It's in the nature of conditioned phenomena to arise and pass away. But here's what your anxious mind does. It takes a temporary experience and projects it into permanence. You feel anxious right now, and your mind says, I'm an anxious person. This is who I am. I'll always be like this. Or it projects the current discomfort into the future. This feeling will last forever. I can't handle this, it's too much. But both of these are lies. The anxiety isn't permanent, it's changing every single second. Even in the midst of an anxiety attack, the intensity is fluctuating. Thoughts are coming and going. Sensations are arising and passing. Nothing is static. When you see impermanence clearly, really see it, you stop fighting anxiety. You stop trying to make it go away because you realize it's already going away. It's already in the process of dissolving. All you have to do is not interfere, not add more suffering on top of the discomfort, not create a story about what this anxiety means about you. Just let it be what it is, a temporary arising of uncomfortable sensations and thoughts that will pass away on their own. The third mark of existence is dukkha, which we mentioned earlier. The Buddha's insight here is that clinging to impermanent, non-self phenomena inevitably leads to suffering. And this is the final piece of the puzzle. Anxiety isn't just discomfort. It's what happens when we fight discomfort, when we resist what is, when we try to control the uncontrollable. Think about it. The physical sensations of anxiety, the racing heart, the shallow breathing, the tense muscles, these aren't inherently unbearable, they're just sensations. Intense, yes. Uncomfortable, sure. But not unbearable. What makes anxiety unbearable is the layer of resistance we add to it. The thoughts that say, this shouldn't be happening, I need to make this stop, something's wrong with me, I can't handle this, what if this never ends? That resistance, that fighting, That's what creates suffering. That's what turns discomfort into anguish. The Buddha's solution isn't to eliminate discomfort. That's impossible. The solution is to change your relationship to it, to stop fighting, to stop resisting, to stop adding suffering on top of pain. This is what mindfulness really is. Not some fuzzy, feel-good concept about being present. It's the radical practice of allowing your experience to be exactly what it is, without trying to change it. When anxiety arises, you feel it. You don't try to make it go away. You don't judge yourself for having it. You don't spiral into stories about what it means. You just feel the sensations in your body. You notice the thoughts in your mind. You observe it all with curiosity and compassion. And something miraculous happens. The anxiety doesn't necessarily go away immediately, though sometimes it does. What happens is that it stops being a problem. It stops being suffering. It's just energy moving through your system, just thoughts passing through your mind, just what's happening right now. There's a famous Zen story that illustrates this perfectly. A student asks the master, "How do I find peace?" The master says, "By saying yes." "Yes to what?" asks the student. The master responds, "Yes to everything. Yes to anxiety. Yes to discomfort. Yes to uncertainty. Yes to not knowing. Yes to this moment exactly as it is." This isn't resignation. It's not giving up or becoming passive. It's the deepest form of strength. It's the willingness to feel what you feel without needing it to be different. And paradoxically, when you stop fighting your anxiety, when you stop trying to control it, it begins to lose its power. Because anxiety feeds on resistance. It grows stronger the more you fight it. But when you turn toward it with acceptance, when you say yes to it, it has nothing to push against. It's like trying to fight the ocean. The more you struggle, the more exhausted you become. But when you relax and float, the same waves that were drowning you now carry you. Now let's talk about why this works on a neurological level, because this isn't just spiritual philosophy. It's backed by modern neuroscience. When you experience a trigger, your amygdala, the brain's alarm system, activates. It sends signals throughout your body, releasing stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. Your heart rate increases, your breathing becomes shallow, your muscles tense. This is the fight or flight response. It's evolutionarily adaptive when you're facing a physical threat like a predator. But in modern life, the threats are usually social or psychological, the job interview, the relationship conflict, the financial worry. And here's the problem. When you try to suppress or fight these sensations, when you think, "Oh no, I'm getting anxious, I need to calm down, this is bad," you're essentially telling your amygdala that yes, there is a threat, and it responds by amplifying the alarm. This creates a feedback loop. The anxiety creates more anxiety about the anxiety. But when you practice acceptance, when you observe the sensations without judgment, without adding the story, something different happens. The prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for rational thinking and emotional regulation, comes online. It sends signals to the amygdala saying, "We're safe, this isn't an emergency, stand down." The alarm begins to deactivate, not because you forced it to, but because you stopped feeding it with resistance and fear. Studies on mindfulness meditation show exactly this. Long-term meditators have measurably different brain structures. The amygdala actually shrinks, while the prefrontal cortex thickens. They're literally rewiring their brains to be less reactive and more responsive. But you don't need years of meditation to access this. You can start right now with whatever you're experiencing. The key is the shift from fighting to allowing, from judging to observing, from identifying with to witnessing. And this brings us to another crucial Buddhist concept, the two arrows. The Buddha taught that when you experience pain, it's like being struck by an arrow. That first arrow is unavoidable. Life includes discomfort, loss, uncertainty, change. But then we shoot ourselves with a second arrow. That second arrow is our reaction to the first arrow. Our judgment, our resistance, our story about what the pain means. Someone says something critical to you, that's the first arrow. You then spend the next 3 hours ruminating about it, imagining all the ways you're inadequate, worrying about what others think of you. That's the second arrow. And the second arrow almost always hurts more than the first. Anxiety is the second arrow. The first arrow might be uncertainty. You don't know if you'll get the job. That's uncomfortable, but it's just not knowing. The second arrow is all the catastrophizing, the what-ifs, the spinning scenarios of failure and rejection. That's the suffering you're adding to the discomfort. The Buddhist insight is that you can't always avoid the first arrow, but you can stop shooting yourself with the second. You can feel the discomfort of uncertainty without creating suffering around it. You can experience the sensations of nervousness before a big event without the story that you're going to fail. Everyone will judge you. Your life will be ruined. When you stop shooting the second arrow, life doesn't become comfortable all the time, but it becomes workable. It becomes manageable. You discover a capacity to be with difficulty that you didn't know you had. Let me give you a practical example of how this works. Imagine you're lying in bed at night and your mind starts racing with anxious thoughts about tomorrow. The old pattern is to either try to suppress the thoughts, stop thinking about it, go to sleep, which usually makes them stronger, or to engage with the thoughts, trying to solve all the problems, plan for every contingency, which keeps you up all night. The Buddhist approach is completely different. You notice there are anxious thoughts arising. You don't judge them as bad or wrong. You don't try to make them stop. You don't engage with their content. You simply observe them like clouds passing across the sky. You might even label them. That's the job worry thought. There's the relationship fear thought. Oh, there's the catastrophizing thought. And you bring your attention to the physical sensations in your body, the tightness in your chest, the tension in your shoulders, the butterflies in your stomach. And you breathe with those sensations, not to make them go away, but just to be with them, to say yes to them, to allow them to be here. What happens over time, sometimes quickly, sometimes gradually, is that the thoughts lose their urgency. They're still there, but they don't demand your attention in the same way. The sensations might intensify for a moment, but then they begin to soften. Not because you're fighting them, but because you've stopped giving them the resistance they need to maintain their intensity. You might still be awake, but you're not suffering. You're just lying there, feeling what you're feeling, thinking what you're thinking, and somehow that's okay. And often, because you've stopped fighting, sleep comes naturally. Because your nervous system realizes there's no emergency to stay vigilant for. This is the power of the Buddhist insight. It's not about making anxiety disappear. It's about fundamentally changing your relationship to it so that it no longer has power over you. Now there's one more layer to this that we need to explore, and it's perhaps the most profound. The Buddha taught that at the root of all suffering is ignorance, not ignorance in the sense of lacking information, but ignorance of the true nature of reality. We live in a kind of trance, a dream, where we believe in the reality of a separate, permanent self navigating a solid, unchanging world. And from that fundamental misperception, anxiety naturally arises. Because if I'm a separate self, I'm vulnerable. I can be threatened, I can fail, I can be rejected. I can lose everything. My existence feels precarious. But what if that whole framework is mistaken? What if the sense of separation is an illusion created by thought? Think about it. Where do you end and the rest of the world begin? At your skin. But your skin is constantly exchanging molecules with the air. You're breathing in oxygen and breathing out carbon dioxide. You're eating food that becomes your body. You're shedding dead skin cells. You're literally made of atoms that were once in other beings, in stars, in the ocean. The boundary between you and not you is completely arbitrary. The same is true temporally. Where does your past end and your present begin? Where does your present end and your future begin? Every moment is simultaneously the end of the past and the beginning of the future. There's no clear boundary. The more you look, the more you realize that the self you're trying to protect is a conceptual construct, a useful fiction for navigating the world, but not an ultimate reality. And when you see through this construct, not intellectually, but experientially, something shifts. The anxiety doesn't just decrease, the ground it was standing on dissolves. Because there's no separate self to be threatened, there are just experiences arising and passing away in awareness. This is what the Buddha meant by enlightenment or awakening. It's not some mystical state where you float away on a cloud of bliss. It's waking up from the dream of separation, seeing through the illusion of the separate self, and realizing your true nature as the awareness in which all experiences arise. You are not the content of your consciousness. The thoughts, emotions, sensations, perceptions. You are the consciousness itself. You are the space in which anxiety arises. You are the awareness that knows anxiety is present. And awareness itself is never anxious. It's like the sky. Clouds of anxiety can pass through the sky, but the sky is never affected. It never becomes cloudy. The clouds come and go, but the sky remains clear and spacious. When you identify as the awareness rather than the content, you can have the experience of anxiety without being anxious. You can feel the sensations, notice the thoughts, observe the emotions, but you're not caught in them. You're the space in which they're happening, and that space is infinite, unchanging, always at peace. This is the ultimate freedom the Buddha was pointing to. Not freedom from experiences, but freedom within experiences. Not the absence of anxiety, but the absence of identification with anxiety. So how do you actually access this? How do you move from intellectual understanding to lived experience? The Buddha prescribed a very specific path, the Noble Eightfold Path. But at its core, it's about three things: ethical conduct, mental discipline, and wisdom. Ethical conduct means living in a way that doesn't create more suffering for yourself and others. When you lie, cheat, harm, or exploit, you create anxiety. You have to keep track of your lies. You have to worry about being discovered. You have to defend and protect a false image. When you live with integrity, there's a natural ease, a natural peace. You're not at war with reality. Mental discipline is the practice of training your mind through meditation. And I don't mean meditation as some special activity you do on a cushion for 20 minutes a day, though that helps. I mean the moment-to-moment practice of bringing your attention back to the present whenever it wanders into anxious thoughts about the future or regretful thoughts about the past. Every time you notice your mind has wandered and you bring it back, you're strengthening your capacity to be present. You're training yourself to see thoughts as thoughts, not as truth. And wisdom is the direct seeing of the three marks of existence: impermanence, non-self, and suffering. This isn't something you can think your way into. It has to be seen directly through investigation of your own experience. So the practice is this: when anxiety arises, pause. Take a breath. Get curious. What exactly is happening right now? What are the sensations in your body? Where are they located? What's their quality? Are they sharp or dull, moving or still, intense or mild? What are the thoughts? Can you see them as thoughts rather than as truth? Can you notice the space between thoughts? Who is aware of all of this? Can you find the one who is anxious? Where is the self that's experiencing this? These aren't rhetorical questions. They're investigative questions. You're doing science on your own consciousness. And what you'll discover, if you investigate honestly, is that the more closely you look, the less solid everything becomes. The anxiety that felt so overwhelming and monolithic begins to reveal itself as a collection of sensations and thoughts, all of them changing, all of them temporary, none of them you. And in that seeing, there's liberation. Not because the anxiety has disappeared, but because you've seen through it. You've seen that it's empty of the power you thought it had, empty of the solidity you believed it possessed. It's like being afraid of a rope you thought was a snake. The moment you see it's a rope, the fear vanishes, not because you fought the fear or breathed it away, but because you saw the truth. The perceived threat wasn't real. This is the Buddhist insight that instantly makes anxiety lose all power. It's not an instant fix where you never feel anxious again. You will feel anxious. You're a human being with a nervous system designed to detect threats. But you won't suffer from your anxiety in the same way. You won't be at its mercy. You won't let it run your life. You'll feel it, acknowledge it, and let it be. Just another experience arising and passing away in the vast sky of awareness that you truly are. And over time, as you practice this, something beautiful happens. The anxiety that used to hijack your entire system begins to feel more like a weather pattern. It comes, it stays for a while, it goes. And you're the mountain that watches the weather pass, unchanged, unmoved, always here, always now, always at peace. The Buddha's final words to his disciples were, "Work out your own salvation with diligence." He didn't say, "Believe what I tell you." He didn't say, "Have faith." He said, "Investigate. Practice. See for yourself." So I'm not asking you to believe any of this. I'm inviting you to try it. The next time anxiety arises, instead of fighting it, suppressing it, or getting lost in it, try something different. Turn toward it with curiosity. Investigate it. Ask yourself who is anxious. Look for the self that's suffering. Feel the sensations without the story. Watch the thoughts without believing them. Be the awareness that knows all of this is happening, and see what you discover. Because the truth is, you already are free. You've always been free. Anxiety has only ever had the power you've given it, through believing in a self that needs protection, through resisting impermanence, through not seeing clearly what's actually happening. The moment you see clearly, the power dynamic shifts. Anxiety becomes just another visitor in the guest house of your awareness. Welcome it in, offer it tea, and know that it will leave when it's ready. You are not the guest. You are the house. First, spacious and utterly at peace with whatever arises within you.